At the outset, I want to acknowledge the huge effort put in by all the other candidates and their families and teams in the presidential elections over the last few months. It was a gruelling campaign for all concerned. I want to pay special tribute to the two candidates that was in my election, that for President, Henry Burns and Flor McCarthy. Both, and I welcome Flor here, and I don't see Henry, but both of you have made outstanding contributions to the organisation at local, national and European level. And everyone here acknowledges that, and members all over the country acknowledge it, so well done, lads. I want to also mention the deputy presidential candidates, and I'd like to congratulate Richard Kennedy on being successful, and also acknowledge Nigel Renahan and Pat Farrell, both of whom are here today for year outstanding contribution to the organisation, and indeed to some very lively debates over the past few months. And I also want to acknowledge John O'Brien in Munster. And is John here today?
No, tonight.
Tonight, okay. John, we'll see John later on. I want to congratulate the elected people. As I said, Richard Kennedy, newly elected Deputy President, our Regional Chairman, John Coughlin, James Murphy and Bert Stewart, and our new National Committee Chairman. I want to acknowledge the outgoing national officers, our outgoing Deputy President, Tim O'Leary, who has addressed you all here earlier, and I have acknowledged him, and also to our outgoing Treasurer and Returning Officer, Ger Bergen, who has also made a substantial contribution to the association. James McCarthy, our outgoing Munster Chairman, is here today, and James has done an awful lot of work on behalf of farmers all over the country, so thanks for that, James. And I also want to acknowledge Tom Turley's contribution at national level, and I am absolutely clear of the need to have the Connacht issue resolved without delay. At the AGM tonight, we will recognise all our outgoing National Committee Chairman and County Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is indeed an extremely challenging time for the IFA. The events of the past 6 months has seen the organisation come under intense scrutiny. Members have been let down by failures in transparency, governance and decision making. Farmers need a strong IFA to fight for viable farm incomes. We must resolve the structural failures that eventually led to the events of the recent months. Trust, transparency and credibility has to be at the heart of the IFA going forward. As your new president, I'm determined to lead a united and strong organisation, an organisation totally committed to putting farmers first. I want to thank all farmers for your support, and I'm asking you to continue that support for a strong IFA. With the farm income challenge in every sector, farmers need a strong and adequately supported IFA to fight their cause. The Lucy report outlined a number of recommendations. IFA governance will be strengthened. Transparency will be maximised. Our full financial accounts will be placed before the AGM every year and put on the IFA website for all members. The Remuneration Committee will set the payment levels for the President and new Director General, and these will be made public. Neither the President nor the Director General will sit on that committee. I will start the process for the appointment of a new Director General and a review of the levy immediately. This will be followed by a comprehensive review of all areas of income and expenditure. As part of this, a review of pay and working conditions at all levels will be undertaken. On governance, every elected officer will have clear roles and responsibilities. I want to see a reinvigorated and vibrant branch network, meeting more frequently and feeding into the county executives. The county representatives thereafter bringing those views forward onto their national committees, which, as I've often said in the past, are critical to developing and pursuing IFA policy. The IFA structure of voluntary leadership, backed by professional and dedicated staff, is a unique and powerful mix. This teamwork gives the association real strength in representing farmers at local, national and international level. IFA represents farmers across all sectors and all regions. Our structures must ensure that we fully represent the needs of all these farmers. Where there are specific issues affecting smaller groups of farmers, these will be taken on board. I'm taking 2 initiatives to strengthen representation, and I acknowledge what has been said here already in relation to other committees, and these will be also reviewed. But I propose to re-establish the National Animal Health Committee with a broad brief to cover all areas of animal health and welfare. All counties will be represented and the chairman will have a full seat on council. I also propose to set up a national committee combining Healy and all other designated areas, with this chairman also having a full seat on national council. Farmers who have their land sterilised and devalued absolutely deserve full recognition and representation on the IFA National Council. As regards IFA representatives on bodies, all newly elected National Committee chairmen will succeed outgoing chairmen. Apart from these, as I've mentioned already, I propose to discuss with my national officers IFA positions on all other boards and bring the full list back to the next council meeting for approval. Ladies and gentlemen, our single biggest challenge is farm incomes. 2016 is proving to be an extremely difficult year. The reality is that farm incomes are too low and unsustainable. As your new president, I want to assure you that tackling the farm income crisis is my #1 priority. This will be top of my agenda when I meet the Minister for Agriculture. And I want to state quite clearly that politicians need to get serious and recognise that there is a real income crisis in Irish farming at the moment.
Hear, hear.
And I also want to see a dedicated minister with sole responsibility for agriculture and food in the new government. It's totally unacceptable that farmers who do most of the work in producing high quality food are receiving a price below the cost of production. The unrelenting downward pressure by powerful retailers and processors on farm prices is not sustainable. Based on what consumers are paying, farmers are entitled to a lot more. more means a viable price above the cost of production and a fair return on work and investment.
Hear, hear.
The retail regulation, just moving on to it, it's obvious that we need a rebalancing of power in the food supply chain. The aggressive behaviour of dominant retailers towards smaller suppliers, particularly vegetable, fruit and potato growers, must be stopped. IFA is demanding the effective enforcement of the new grocery regulations legislation. Contracts must be effective. Complaints must be investigated and offenders prosecuted. IFA will continue to push for stronger legislation to include an independent ombudsman and a ban on below-cost selling. In Brussels, the Irish government must support the Commission proposal that all large multinationals, including retailers and processors, will be obliged to publish their profits in each member state. On costs and inputs, high inputs are also a major problem. The cartel on fertiliser prices and the stranglehold of the banks on interest rates has to be broken.
Hear, hear.
IFA's investigation and independent high-level report clearly show a complete failure of competition in the European fertiliser market. Manufacturers are unfairly increasing their profits at farmers' expense. The EU Commission must immediately abolish duties and tariffs on fertiliser inputs. This, ladies and gentlemen, will deliver savings of between 50 and 70 million euros for Irish farmers. The cost of bank borrowing remains unacceptably high. Farmers need access to lower interest rates. Irish farmers are currently paying an average of 2% more than our counterparts across the European Union. The new government has to prioritise the new sources of finance to increase competition and drive down borrowing costs. IFA will continue to provide assistance and advice for farmers in financial difficulty. The banks have an obligation to greatly improve their levels of communication, flexibility and understanding. IFA will not tolerate genuine cases of farmers being left at the mercy of vulture funds.
Hear, hear.
Across the board on input costs, IFA will work to drive competition through a comprehensive programme of input surveys. Within the farm gate, the IFA Smart Farming Initiative has delivered cost savings of 5,000 per annum, and this is being continued again in this year. Ladies and gentlemen, with farm incomes under pressure in every sector, the role of CAP and direct payments in supporting farm families was never more important. There can be absolutely no further cuts to direct payments.
Hear, hear.
We recognise the need for a national reserve for young farmers, and the Minister must find a way of delivering this without cutting payments further. The focus of the CAP mid-term review must be built on the simplification initiatives of Commissioner Hogan. We need to simplify the inspection process, cross-compliance and greening requirements. There must be greater flexibility regarding the three-crop rule. The Commissioner must also start preparing the ground for the CAP post-2020. The priorities for Irish farmers are a strong CAP budget, the maintenance of direct payments, and an effective response to market volatility. Delivering direct payments on time is critically important. While acknowledging that most payments have been delivered within the deadlines over the past year, there were some unacceptable delays, adding huge pressure on farmers. Delays will not be tolerated this year. This is a red line for the IFA and the Minister for Agriculture. That is what I mean by a robust and working Charter of Rights. Under the Rural Development Programme, there is funding of 580 million available for farm services. IFA will intensify our campaign for increased direct payments. This means restoration of the ANC payment to pre-2008 levels, worth an extra €50 million to Irish farmers. Improved GLOS payments with over 50,000 participants. A targeted sheep payment. An increase in the suckler cow payment. And increased grant aid under TAMS.
Hear, hear.
I will go into some of those in more detail in later sections. The volatility and taxation. In last October's budget, the IFA secured a tax credit for farmers and the self-employed. But I want to see this coming in line with the PAYE allowance no later than 2017. Tax measures on land leasing, farm transfers and young farmers are beginning to have a positive impact. Addressing volatility through the tax system is a new challenge. Farmers need new and improved measures to provide them with necessary flexibility. The agri-industry must also come forward with risk management measures, including contracts, to provide greater stability on supplies, prices and inputs. On Brexit, the outcome of the UK referendum on EU membership will have far-reaching consequences for Ireland and the agri-food sector. Irish agri-food and drink exports to the UK in 2015 was €4.4 billion. We've already seen the negative impact on exports from a weaker sterling. A UK exit could see a return of tariffs, quotas and border controls. Other threats include the CAP budget, animal health and trade deals. The IFA has a clear position on Brexit. Irish agriculture is stronger with the UK as part of the EU. The drive by the EU Commission on TTIP and Mercosur must be halted. Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmström cannot ignore the opposition from 20 EU agriculture ministers to her draft Mercosur trade offer. This threatens the EU market with cheap South American beef. Mercosur is bad for Irish agriculture and particularly for our very important beef industry. It's reckless that the Commission, it's reckless where we have a Commission that are willing to propose a draft offer which would hand over 37% of our European steak market to the South Americans.
Hear, hear.
As a fundamental principle, the EU must insist on equivalence of standards. And the record shows that Mercosur countries have consistently failed to meet EU standards on animal health and welfare, on traceability, the environment and the ban on hormones. Commissioner Phil Hogan must not allow agriculture to be the sacrificial lamb in these negotiations. Now turning, ladies and gentlemen, to the main farming sectors. The lack of competition in the beef sector has been and remains a major problem. Prices and income are unacceptably low. Clear evidence of this was the unacceptable gap of €300 per animal between Irish and British beef prices throughout 2015. This has to be confronted. IFA has retained a competition economist to examine the proposed ABP investment in Slaney. We will be making a strong case to the government and the Competitions Authority in both Brussels and Dublin that effective competition in the beef sector is essential. We also require a strong live export trade. We need to see stock flowing to the likes of Turkey and Egypt. The new government must also resolve the labelling issues which are preventing us from maximising the potential of the live trade with Northern Ireland and Britain. IFA is totally opposed to carcass weight restrictions. Weights were never part of the QPS. These are being used to cut prices to our best quality stock from the suckler herd and would cost Irish farmers over 10 million per year. We need to see a proper payment system based on quality with the specifications appropriate to Irish production. The QPS grid must be reviewed on this basis. The Board Via Quality Assurance Scheme, while essential, must be more practical and farmer friendly. Beef farmers need a close-out period to allow them remain in the scheme and trade while addressing compliance issues. All of these issues must be dealt with in an effective beef forum, led by the Minister that works and delivers for Irish farmers. I'm also calling for the immediate reopening of the Beef Data and Genomics Scheme to allow new entrants in 2016. This scheme needs to be simplified and also be more farmer friendly, and the IFA is targeting increased support for the suckler herd through a payment of €200 per cow. The dairy farmers are in a prolonged period of extremely low prices and reduced income. The dairy industry cannot plan for a future based on farmers carrying most of the market risk. Co-ops require farmers to sign milk contract agreements. In return, they must give stronger direction on the volume the market can support at a viable price. The co-ops has to stop cutting milk price. Hear, hear. Farmers can't take any more of the pain. Co-op management and executives must find savings outside of cutting the milk price. Cash flow support is urgently required. At national level, the government must use the EU concessions on higher levels of state aid. The EU Commission must also commit to stronger market supports. The banks must be proactive with farmers and fast-track overdraft and other facilities. Longer-term, flexible financial products such as the Glanbia package must be offered across all sections of Irish farming. And Teagasc and the co-ops must help farmers with cash flow budgeting. Liquid milk producers are also under pressure. In 2015, poor prices saw autumn calvings drop by 15%. Producers are voting with their feet. The result is a reduction in the availability of fresh milk over the winter months with potential implications for consumers. Retailers and dairies must return a fair price, which covers the additional costs associated with year-round production. Grain farmers are facing into their fourth difficult year, with prices totally out of line with the reality of fertilisers, chemicals, machinery and land rental costs. 3 years of falling prices left growers last year accept a price of less than €140 per tonne. 25 years ago, farmers were getting much more than this. Even 40 years ago, they were getting much more than this. With 6.5 million livestock, 1.5 million pigs, and over 12 million poultry, our agriculture sector consumes over 5 million tonnes of grain annually, of which we produce about half. We need a vibrant tillage farming sector in Ireland.
Hear, hear.
Forward contracts, increased farm-to-farm trading, higher incorporation of Irish grain in rations, and alternative market outlets for straw all have important roles to play in the tillage sector. In addition, we need to see increased use of Irish malting barley in our growing whisky industry. TAM's grant aid has been secured for storage facilities and processing equipment. This must be delivered when the next tranche opens in June. I want to assure grain farmers that I will actively pursue these issues with the Grain Committee. On sheep, an average retail price of €10.50 per kilo allows the market to be well capable of returning a farmer price of over €100 per head across the summer season. The recent attack by processors on lamb price is totally unjustified.
Hear, hear.
Farmers have to be properly rewarded for the production of high-cost, quality spring lamb. We're making progress on the IFA campaign for a targeted payment of €20 per breeding ewe, with commitments from both of the political parties. The new government must now deliver on those commitments. In Brussels, IFA will continue to strongly represent the sheep sector in the EU Sheep Reflection Group, which is chaired by one of our former presidents. In 2016, IFA will have a strong focus on hill farming and pursue flexible implementation of commonage stocking rules, a Borbia marketing initiative for hill lambs, implementation of the proposed extension to the burning dates, and expansion of the walks scheme. Pig farmers are also enduring a severe income crisis. It's unacceptable that the EU has left farmers carrying the cost of the Russian ban, which arises from a geopolitical decision. The EU Commission must support the pig sector through export credits, APS, and market access. Following last month's Farm Ministers' meeting, the Department of Agriculture must deliver the short-term financing solutions, and the banks must also play their part. On the home market, we will pursue the extension of country of origin labelling and the use of the IFA DNA scheme to maximise the amount of Irish pig meat sold. IFA is seeking the establishment of a pig meat forum, chaired by the Minister, which will map out a sustainable and long-term strategy for the pig sector. For the poultry farmers, IFA will continue to work to deliver sustainable payment terms. With our high welfare standards and low disease status, the opportunity to break into export markets must be strongly supported. IFA has secured the inclusion of poultry in the TAMS grant and the knowledge transfer programme, and I strongly encourage poultry farmers to take up these schemes and expand cautiously. Achieving the highest animal health status is critical across all our livestock sectors. Progress, and I acknowledge progress, has been made on eradicating brucellosis and in most areas on TB, but black spot areas do remain. The department must enforce stronger deer and badger controls. TB compensation increases secured by the IFA are a positive first step in reducing the cost burden on farmers. However, the restrictions preventing farmers from buying back in stock and selling calves from dairy farms must be resolved. The BVD programme has made progress in reducing disease with real benefits for Irish farmers. Since 2013, the number of herds with PI animals has reduced by half, with over 30,000 PI animals removed from the national herd. But we need a further reduction in testing costs and a deadline for the end of on-farm testing. The failure of our Department of Agriculture to provide adequate compensation to match the efforts that farmers were making has damaged the scheme and greatly delayed progress.
Hear, hear.
There will be a substantial work agenda for the new Animal Health Committee, tackling areas like IBR and Jones, the new EU animal health regulations and animal welfare. Moving on to forestry and bioenergy. The ongoing forestry mapping issues are unacceptable. It's wrong that farmers who planted their lands in good faith are being hit with retrospective penalties. I'm determined that these issues are resolved. Farmers must have confidence that forestry payments will be honoured in full. The replanting obligation is a major deterrent to many farmers who are considering forestry. There must be greater flexibility if we are to achieve our planting targets. And above all, forestry policy must favour farmers over corporate investors. The aquaculture sector supports 2,000 jobs and delivers 150 million euros worth of output. IFA believes that this important sector firmly belongs in the Department of Agriculture. This is particularly important to ensure delivery on the commitment in Foodwise 2025 for an urgent licence review. Ladies and gentlemen, making our farms safer is a real priority for IFA. Low prices and income pressure are increasing stress on farm families and not helping the situation regarding farm safety. Through the Save Lives campaign and the National Farm Safety Day, IFA is raising awareness and supporting farmers to reduce risks on their farms. With our partners in AgriAware, FBD and the ESB, the IFA has funded a DVD for primary schools highlighting farm safety risks for children. Today I'm proposing the introduction of a PTO scrappage scheme to support farmers to replace old PTO shafts with newer, safer models. Rural crime and security are also a major concern for farm families and indeed other rural households. IFA has taken a lead in this area with the appointment of a rural crime prevention officer. We're working with the Gardaí on a number of initiatives, including combating livestock theft, community text alerts and theft stop for farm machinery and equipment. A few words on Fair Deal. The current rules of the Fair Deal scheme have the potential to destroy the viability of the family farm business by burdening farmers with excessive care costs. The ongoing review of this scheme must address the issues and the treatment of productive assets and the 5-year rule. We're coming closer to the end, you'll be glad to know. So, a few words on climate change. and 2016 is a very important year for the agri-environment and climate change policy. At EU levels, emission targets for greenhouse gases and ammonia up to 2030 are to be agreed. The IFA has called on Commissioner Hogan to ensure that Ireland's sustainable model of food production is not damaged by the outcome of these discussions. No other country in the world measures, monitors or manages carbon from farm to fork like Ireland. Our leadership as an efficient, low carbon producer must be protected. The IFA is stepping up its campaign, and this year we will join the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture, that's a mouthful, which is tackling the dual challenges of climate change and food security. In the area of renewable energy, almost half of Ireland's targets for 2020 have yet to be reached. A more inclusive energy policy is urgently required, which targets greater community participation. Another key area for the organisation is flooding. And the severe flooding of last winter brought home to us the absolute devastation and hardship caused to farms, farmyards, and farm families, and indeed other families, and their homes. It also highlighted the complete inaction of successive governments in dealing with river maintenance. We are demanding a single authority to take charge of our rivers with the power to carry out all necessary work, including dredging and drainage, to protect people and their livelihoods. On rural renewal, the choice to live in rural Ireland remains a very positive option. IFA supports the social farming initiative, demonstrating the caring role farming can play. However, there are many challenges. Farm Assist is critical to ensuring the survival of many low-income farm families. The income disregards must be restored. The eligibility criteria for the Rural Social Scheme must be expanded beyond the Farm Assist beneficiaries only. Leader has an important role in supporting economic development both inside and outside the farm gate. However, the new structure based within the local authorities is not in the best interests of rural development and risks losing local expertise, experience and knowledge. Just a quick word on broadband, because we need a high quality fibre broadband network to be rolled out across rural Ireland to support homes and businesses, job creation and investment. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, farming is facing many, many difficult challenges. Never was it more important to have a strong and united IFA. As your new president of the organisation, I'm determined to tackle these challenges head on and deliver real results for Irish farming families. The history of our great association is the story of 6 decades of work at home and abroad, delivering for Irish farmers. I'm asking you today to get behind me as your president, to get behind the IFA, because together we can succeed. Gora Míle Maith.